The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Nordic Fantasy. Win up to 325 times your entry with their new Pick 8. Sign with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and any first time deposit offer of $2 in bonus cash on Nordic Fantasy, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best ad-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday night, roughly 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on June 22nd. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a bit of a shorter episode, only 2 matches to talk about. It is final time in both Halle and the London. So we're going to preview the 2 matchups, the one in Halle between Hurkacz and Sinner, and the one in London between Musetti and Paul. So we're going to go through those 2 matches in a second. Before we continue that, though, do want to recap what happened in the last episode, both for the lock and dog picks and for the semifinal matches on Saturday as a whole. Starting off with the lock and dog picks, overall not good. Went 0-2 on those. For the lock, we had Zhang team total under 8.5 at -115. Thought Sinner would kill him, and Sinner did win in straight sets. And I also thought Sinner would not get broken in the entire match, and Sinner did not. However, the reason why we lost was because Sinner just could not generate any breakpoint chances in the second set. He was able to win the first set 6-4, and he had a couple of deuce games in the return games in the second set. But unfortunately, Zhang just hit too many of his first serves, and that was kind of the story of the set. So to go through the actual numbers here, Sinner in that match was extremely just phenomenal when it came to serving. That was really never in doubt. Zhang did not have a break point until we already lost the team total, actually. So Sinner was already doing a great job serving. Zhang, though, to go through the match in general, only won 33% of his second serve points. So there were some opportunities to be had. The issue was Zhang ended up landing 67% of the first serves, and that was why we ended up losing the play. So I can't really say it was a bad read because Sinner did have chances, but at the end of the day, Zhang just hit a few too many first serves, and as a result, that was kind of the story of the match. But Sinner got the job done in straight sets. Didn't do us any good, though, as Zhang finished with 10 games on the team total. For the dog, wasn't that close, though. Did a head-to-head bet here. Ended up going with Korda because of the head-to-head angle, where he was up 4-1 against Paul. Didn't work out. We went on historical head-to-head data instead of, I guess, recent form. And Paul looked very good in the overall match. He was going to win comfortably. Then he choked it away when he was serving for the match. But he ended up regaining his nerve as he ended up winning the second set via breaker. Overall, though, took kind of a stand there. Thought a lot of people were on Paul and thought it was a pretty good contrarian spot. And it turns out it wasn't. Match was competitive. It was 6-4, 7-6. But the match was actually more lopsided than it appeared because Paul was serving for the match and choked it away. So it had basically no hope, then some hope, and it turned out to be false hope because Paul got the job done in straight sets. So overall, not a good episode for us. Happens, look to bounce back here on Sunday. On the bright side, though, we actually guarantee ourselves an outright win because we have Hurkacz at 10-1 and we have Sinner at +140. So no matter what happens, we do win an outright. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you have both, and maybe you can hedge accordingly if you do want to maybe guarantee yourself some arbitrage profit, but you're going to make profit automatically a lot more if Hurkacz wins by comparison. Either way, though, time to get into the other matches that we have to recap. I already mentioned before that you saw Sinner beat Zhang in straight sets, and you saw Paul beat Korda in straight sets. You had Hurkacz beating Zverev in the early match, 7-6, 6-4, where Zverev had 4 breakpoint chances. I think they were all in one game. Didn't convert. Hurkacz had 1 breakpoint chance and converted. It was one of those, and Hurkacz's serve was too good down the stretch for Zverev to get the break back. So a nice win there by Hurkacz in the underdog role against the Zverev's home country fans and against a top 5 player in the world right now. And Hurkacz got the job done in that one. Besides that, you also had the other London match, which was the best match of the day, where you had Thompson and Musetti. Really just an up and down affair. We thought it'd go over 2.5 sets. It did. We did think Thompson would win, so overall not the greatest day for us on the sides. But Musetti hung in there, won the first set 6-3, then Thompson won the second set 6-3, and then Musetti was able to bounce back, winning the final set 6-3. So nice job by Musetti to regain his nerve after kind of getting dominated in the second set. But either way, now he's in a grass final. Should be a solid pair of finals on Sunday, and hopefully they are competitive, and hopefully we do make some money. Either way, there's nothing else to really recap for those matches before we get into any of the preview for the finals. Do want to remind me once again to like, subscribe on YouTube to the podcast. Also, a reminder, if you are still listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, don't forget to rate and review the podcast. So no matter how you consume it, you can still leave your feedback, either positive or negative. Leave some and let me know if the show can improve or if you like or don't like the show as it is currently formatted. Besides that, don't forget to check out the SGPN merch store to get some high-quality merchandise from the podcast. We have shirts, we have sweatshirts, and we have mugs. I told everybody last episode I was going to be wearing for an example of a shirt that you can get on the merch store, and I have it. So this is the shirt right here. It comes in different colors. It comes in green as well, but it does come in white and black. So if you do want yourself a shirt, don't forget to check out the SGPN merch store because they have a lot of great merchandise, not just for the tennis show, but also for other shows of the network, including the College Football Experience, which is currently very busy doing team previews preseason. So you have the Countdown Football Season, which is on, and SGPN, as you covered, the College Football Experience is doing individual team previews for every single college football team. Sounds exhausting, but I'm not the one doing it, so definitely a solid amount of content for you to consume if you are getting that football fever. Plus, SGPN's 5-Minute Fantasy Football is your quick podcast to get you prepped for all things fantasy. So if you're doing your fantasy drafts at some point during the summer, don't forget to check out that podcast as well to help you with all your fantasy needs. Before we do get into any of the actual matches, though, for Sunday, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy because the Pick 8 is now live. Create entries up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex your entries, so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. Win more picks with more picks to make and extra ways to win. The excitement's higher than ever. The best part, you can now win 325 times the original entry. You can now use specials, boosts, and on all flex entries. I'll probably end up using a Pick 8 entry for something WNBA related on a Sunday. Terrell and I are going to be doing the WNBA show right after this. So once again, if you do like some basketball, even though the NBA season's over, don't forget to check out the WNBA show if you do want some extra action for basketball. Once again, a reminder, sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $2 in bonus cash on Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping the Saturday matches. Now it's time to get into the 2 matches for Sunday. So, like it has been for the entire tournaments, you have these matches starting about an hour apart, and Halle is starting first. So Halle is going to be the first match we talk about, which is the match of the day, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. You have Sinner taking on Hurkacz, and for this one, Sinner is obviously a massive favorite, about minus 300. Perks being the number 1 player in the world. As for Hurkacz, he's plus 250. For the game spread, you have Sinner minus 2.5 at minus 120. You have Hurkacz plus 2.5 at even money. The over-under for games is set at 25. You can find 23.5, though, at minus 115. So if you are expecting a couple of marathon sets or potentially 3 sets, then the over is definitely the way to go about it. For the set spread, though, you have minus 1.5 sets for Sinner at plus 115. Hurkacz plus 1.5 sets is minus 145. And the over 2.5 sets is plus 130. Now, for the head-to-head, Sinner has done pretty well against Hurkacz, but it has been pretty competitive as they are tied 2-2 in the head-to-head. So to go through the recent meetings, we saw Sinner get the job done on clay against Hurkacz in the last meeting, which was last year in Monte Carlo, where Sinner lost the first set, then won the next 2. Hurkacz had won a match in Dubai in 2022 in straight sets. You saw that Sinner beat Hurkacz comfortably in the ATP Finals in 2021. So Hurkacz has lost 2 of the last 3 meetings. None of them, though, were on grass, so we'll see what happens in this one. Now, both guys have been great serving-wise for the entire tournament. Sinner has gotten broken 1 time in the entire event. It was the second match that he played. So 0 breaks in the last 2 matches, so I do think Sinner's serve has been extremely effective so far in this event. Hurkacz, though, has also been solid serving-wise as he has not gotten broken in 2 of his last 3 matches. So with that being the case, I do think you might see a lot of holds and a potential amount of breakers in this one. I believe tiebreaker in the match as a whole is minus 250. Pretty standard. Not going to argue with that. So I do think you're going to end up seeing a breaker or 2 minimum. And I think you're going to end up seeing what should be a very close matchup. Now, I guess based on that breakdown, I am going to lean to Hurkacz for the value. I think 3-1. I think minus 300 is a bit too juicy for Sinner. I think that even though he is obviously the better player here, if we're going to be expecting a lot of holds and not many breaks, then I do think taking a flyer with its plus 250 to find ways to get mini breaks in the breakers are probably where the value's at. So I think Hurkacz has value at plus 250. I think the over has value at minus 115. I think these guys are going to be serving bombs, and I think you're going to see very, very few break points for either guy. You might end up getting, for example, one break point for Hurkacz in the entire match. Wouldn't totally shock me. Hurkacz had one break point chance against Zverev. He converted, but he only had one chance. And Sinner only allowed one chance in his matchup against Zhang in the semis. So I don't see many breakpoint chances, and I do think if both guys can at least fight off the, I'd say, handful of breakpoint chances they do hypothetically face, then you are going to be expecting a breaker or two. You might get a 7-6, 7-6, something like that. But for me, for this one, give me the over, and I will lean to Hurkacz for the value at plus 250. I just think that line's too massive when you're looking at a guy that's tied 2-2 in the head-to-head and a guy that has the serving quality that can match Sinner and potentially force a couple of breakers. So give me the value on the dog in this one. But I think Sinner, once again, probably wins, but there's no value at minus 300. So give me Hurkacz in this one as the value play, but I prefer the over instead. Moving on to the second match, we're going to talk about the final in London between Musetti and Paul. Paul's a big favorite, minus 280, and you have Musetti at around plus 235. For the game spread, you have minus 3.5 for Paul, plus 3.5 for Musetti, and for the set spread here, you have Paul in straight sets at plus 120. You have Musetti to win a set at minus 150. The over-under for games, 22.5, but you can get 23.5. The over is plus 110. The under is minus 140. For the over 2.5 sets, you have plus 130 there, but that's basically it for the actual markets. Now, no head-to-head meetings between the two guys, and Musetti has been solid. I think we're all surprised he's here, but he has been dropping sets. So to go through Musetti's path, he ended up going to 3 sets against Dimonauer, went to 3 sets against Nakashima, did beat Harris, a wild card, in the quarters in straight sets, and beat Thompson in 3. So a lot of marathons for Musetti. As for Paul, been a lot more straightforward. Ended up beating Baez in straight sets, beat Tabilo in straight sets, beat Draper in a 3, and beat Korda in straight sets. So really a tale of two different paths for both guys. Now, Paul, I do think, should be the favorite because I think that he's better on grass. However, similar to the Hurkacz price, I think 280 is massive. I think Musetti is good enough to make the match competitive. And even though Tommy Paul has been really good here, I don't consider him to be a grass juggernaut. And I think that with that being the case, this match should be more open and more up in the air than the odds makers suggest. I think it's going to be similar to the Musetti and Thompson match, where you might see a couple of lopsided sets individually, but it will join together to result in what should be a competitive match. But for me, I just think this price is too big. I really don't want to lay 280 with Paul. I really don't want to lay 3.5 games with Paul. So I guess by default, I'm leaning to Musetti. I think the match can go to 3 sets. We know Paul, despite once again serving well in the event as a whole, he has still faced a fair share of break points, and I do think as a result, Musetti can find some openings in the return games. And with that being the case, I do think you're going to end up seeing a pretty competitive matchup between two guys that I think have been playing some good tennis this week. So even though I think Paul, if he won, would I be shocked? No. But do I think that 280 is a large price? Yes. I think that Paul should be closer, in my opinion, to like minus 220, give or take, maybe minus 205. 280, I just think is too big of a price. So I'm going to go with the dog here for the value, plus the games, and I am going to lean to the money line and potentially the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. If I'm picking Musetti to keep the match competitive, he has been no stranger to 3 setters. So that being the case, give me the over in that one as well. That's going to wrap it up for the 2 previews for the Sunday matches. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But before we get into that, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm gives you great information on player props. And if you are trying to bet on player props, they need to get Rhythm, because Rhythm is your go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easier and more enjoyable. The predictive model was born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data to help you make better AI-backed betting decisions. Plus, it's never too early to actually start going through some NFL. So if you do want to do some NFL projections, Rhythm can definitely help you out with that. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportscampodcast.com. Just Rhythm, sportscampodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the two matches for Sunday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Starting off with the lock for the show, I think I am going to go to the matchup in London between Paul and Musetti. Mentioned before that I thought Musetti might be live to make the match competitive, and I do think he will be able to actually apply some pressure to Paul's service games. Give me the over. 1.5 breaks of serve at minus 110. Paul's actually been broken a decent amount of times so far in the event. He's been broken at least two times in each of the last two matches, and he has been broken at least two times in 5 of his last 7. So Paul, even though he has been winning in straight sets in a lot of these matches, has gone broken multiple times. Korda broke him twice on Saturday. I think Musetti's return game's been underrated in the event, and I do think he can get the job done to cash this lock. Now, Musetti has recorded at least 2 breaks in every match here in London. He is 4 for 4, so that being the case, I think Musetti should be able to get a couple of breakpoint chances in this matchup, and I think with that being the case, and what maybe could be a 3-setter, there should be a lot of Paul service games to work with, so I am going to go with the over 1.5 breaks for Musetti as my lock at minus 110, mostly thinking that based on the price that Paul currently is at minus 280, his serving skills being a bit overrated as a result, so I think that there's some value fading the serve, backing Musetti's return game. For the dog, I am going to go back to Halle, and I mentioned before, I'm expecting some breakers in this matchup between Hurkacz and Sinner. Tie break is minus 250 in the match as a whole. Give me the first set tie break at plus 125, or in other words, the first set over 12.5 games at plus 125. So Hurkacz has gone to a first set breaker in 3 straight matches. Hurkacz has also not gotten broken in 2 of his last 3 matches. Sinner, though, has only gotten broken 1 time in the entire tournament. We know both guys, despite being great servers, return-wise have not been overly impressive so far into the event. Sinner's had at least 1 breaker in every match of the tournament, and we've seen Hurkacz have at least 1 breaker as well in every match of the tournament. So far, Hurkacz has had 3 breakers and a 7-5 in the first set of the event. So that being the case, I see a lot of easy holds. I see a pretty quick first set in terms of just holds resulting in not many breakpoint chances, if any breakpoint chances for either guy. And with that being the case, I do like the value here for a first set breaker plus 125, mostly for the value. It's minus 120, it's minus 250 for a breaker in the match, but you can get breaker first set at plus 125. I do like those odds quite a bit by comparison, so I am going to go with that instead as my dog. So once again, my picks for the show, the lock's going to be on Musetti, over 1.5 breaks of serve at minus 110. For my dog, I am going to go with Hurkacz and Sinner first set over 12.5 games at plus 125. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We'll be back once again to break down the final tune-up tournaments before Wimbledon, as we have Eastbourne and Mallorca. So we're going to preview both of those tournaments in the next episode once I quickly just fix the actual title there. Sorry, just accidentally had a typo there. So once again, the next episode will be on the outrights for Eastbourne and Mallorca. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the WNBA show. A reminder, there will be a WNBA episode in about 15 minutes. So if you are subscribed to the NBA Gambling Podcast feed, just move over there, and we do WNBA shows as well over there. And also find me on the MLB show. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.